What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave podcast here at the Culture Wave Media Network, and we are here to discuss in its entirety the Spider-Noir series on Prime Video, starring Nicolas Cage as Ben Reilly, a host of other actors in this that we'll be getting into in this discussion. I'm going to be one of your hosts. My name is Darian. I am joined this time by Sean Villa.
Oh my gosh.
And Vinny Albano.
Hello. I don't have something as cool as that, but
Yeah. Nice,
Wearing my
dude.
Spider-Man shirt. I was really excited to watch this. Now, I binged this entire series in one day.
Whoa.
I haven't done that in a really long time.
Yeah, see?
I really love this show, man. I think it's so different. It's obviously, I feel like the comic book genre, again, like it's kind of on this weird downturn the last couple of years. But this year in particular, like Wonder Man, well, you haven't had a chance to watch Wonder Man, right?
Wonder Man.
Vinny and I both watched Wonder Man. We both really enjoyed it. It's very different. This is not associated with the Disney Marvel. This is the Sony deal
Marvel.
because it's all the Spider-Man characters, and Spider-Noir, better known as the Spider or Ben Reilly in this case, kind of became bigger and took on a life of its own because of the Spider-Verse films, and Nicolas Cage voiced the character in animation. So when they first announced this, I was super worried because I was like, I don't know how all these series don't always work. Lord and Miller did produce it, though, and they had a lot to do with the kind of development of how this came to be. And once they cast Cage back in the role, I was like, okay, this has a lot of potential to be something really great. I really enjoyed this, kind of just based on broad thoughts. But for you, Sean, how did you feel, again, not spoilers to start, about this series overall?
There are two things in this world that I love so much. One of them is Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man. He's my favorite superhero. I don't think he'll ever be topped. I used to be Batman, and then I grew up and I realized that, fuck, dude, I'm just like Peter Parker, but I'm also not cool. So it's so relatable. I love Spider-Man, and I also love Nick Cage. I am such a Cage head, specifically when he's not good. I think Nick Cage is one of the best actors of all time. Vampire's Kiss might just be my favorite acting performance ever. Since I saw that movie, I've been obsessed with the indie Cage hits that have been coming out for the past 2 decades. When he voiced Spider-Noir, who's a very cool like offshoot of the traditional Spider-Man, like everyone is in that Spider-Verse movie, I thought it was a really nice little treat for me. It was like, oh wow, it's almost like Nick Cage is playing Spider-Man in something. It's very close. And then they announced this show, and I could not fucking believe it. I really couldn't believe it. I never in a million years did I think my prayers would be answered, and we would get a Spider-Noir, Nick Cage, fucking live-action Spider-Man show. Unbelievable that this even exists.
oh yeah.
On top of that, we have this really cool thing that I've personally never seen, where the show is available to watch in color and in black and white at the same time. We'll break into deeper thoughts on that. But generally speaking, man, regardless about how I feel about the show, I feel like I could be a little more positive, but I do really like it, and I'm stoked to talk about it.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot that went against what this show, like, why it was even announced is, like you said, it's kind of a revelation in and of itself. I mean, Nick Cage leading a Spider-Man live action series that is set in the 1930s, that is going on a noir space when that's not where the industry is trending. It's kind of miraculous, not only that it was made, but that it's wind up being something that's actually good. So I agree with you there. Vinny, what about you on terms of broad thoughts for the series?
I liked it. It was fun. I don't think I'm as crazy on it as you guys. At least we haven't really talked much off camera, but just from the vibe that I'm getting, I thought it was good. I didn't think it was like amazing, but I did have a lot of fun with it. It's very ambitious. I think the biggest thing that I'm gonna be constantly bringing up throughout this this review is that kind of wished it was a little bit more noir in tone. It goes for a lot more lighthearted, campier tone, which I like at moments, but I also wish it was more, when he's first introduced in Spider-Verse and he parodies like the smell of rain. I forget the line he says, but it's very like,
I let cigarettes burn down to my fingers just to feel something. It's fucking hilarious.
Like, I was waiting for more of that type of tone, and I still want more of that, but I did have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do. It's a different interpretation of this version of the character than the Spider-Verse movies. I think it is a separate thing entirely.
I think the Spider-Verse one is Peter Parker.
Yes.
So this is a completely different dude.
Yeah, and I think this is actually somewhat of an adaptation of the comic that they made in 2009, where they got the inspiration for even including the character in the Spider-Verse movie, because I was not familiar with this version of the character prior to the animated movie. Were you, Vinny, as a comic reader?
I just really knew him from Spider-Verse.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I knew him from.
You did?
I knew him from an old video game I used to play when I was like 9 years old. I think it was called Shattered Dimensions on the Xbox 360.
Spider-Man Shattered
Crazy
Dimensions.
call out. Yo, drop in the comments if you played Shattered Dimensions. Maybe we could play some multiplayer.
Link up in Xbox 360.
Yeah, let's link up.
Let's go join the party, everybody. No, but there's just, like I said, there's a lot with this series that we could talk about. The first thing, I agree with what you said, Vinny. I think tonally, it definitely, even the more serious moments, it's not in the noir stuff. It's more of the psychological stuff that Ben is going through, which I still really enjoyed. Like the whole sequence that comes in later in the season when they're trying to find the antidote to kind of be able to get the super powered individuals to lose their powers. I thought that episode was really well done in the way that they dive into, even the way visually they do the stuff when he's going through like the crazy, what is it? The neuroses that he's going through when he's under.
Oh,
you know what I'm
I
talking
see.
about?
Yeah,
Yes.
the little dream sequence.
The dream sequence, yeah. So I think there's a lot of really interesting tonal things that happen throughout this entire series. Nick Cage, though, again, like this is the first I believe this is the first TV show he's ever done.
I think so.
And just that alone, for the first time for him to venture into television to do something of this nature, I think is really interesting. He talked about how he wanted this to be the intro for young people to understand what the noir genre is, which, like Vinny said, it doesn't necessarily dive into a lot of what the actual noir filmmaking is, but it gives these fun little reference points. How do you feel as a writer tonally they handled a lot of this story along with the noir elements? Did you feel like they could have done a better job, or were you satisfied with the way that they kind of put together the narrative?
Yeah, it's strange because I'm not super familiar with noir. I'll just be straight up with that. Specifically, the decade of noir that this show is kind of parodying, which is like the old,
1930s,
1930s black and white noir films, and then the subsequent like 40s, 50s, maybe even a little bit 60s that would jump back to this period to create the noir genre as we know it. So in terms of whether it like really measures up as a noir, I'm not the most qualified person to talk about that. Tonally, I think I agree kind of with what Vinny was saying in that there were moments in this show that I wish that it took kind of a darker tone, a little more serious in places. But generally speaking, I think the mystery feels very grounded in a very refreshing way for a Spider-Man story. If you don't come from like Spider-Man animated kids television, it's really hard to get kind of like a just friendly neighborhood Spider-Man kind of thing anymore. We've been getting, especially with the MCU, very bombastic world stake Spider-Man movies. And then, the Spider-Verse movies are like the multiverse stakes. So just having a Spider-Man story that's just like trying to solve like one mystery and, one single crime lord. I gotta find who burned down his house, like that. It's just a very like simple story, which is very refreshing to me. It really just allowed me to kind of like sit with New York and the setting and getting intimate with these side characters that really like have never had any screen time. I think there might even be like an original character or two in here. Just all really good stuff.
Yeah. Vinny, what about you?
I echo the same sentiment. I like how contained this show is. I like how they don't do this thing where they do in the MCU where they kind of call reference to previous. I mean, No Way Home is a whole other talking point. But even in Far From Home and Homecoming, they call references to like Toby. Remember when Toby did the thing with the train? Oh, he's doing it now with the cargo ship. They don't do that at all here. Like, he is his own character. Ben Reilly exists as his own Spider-Man. I like that. It's contained. It's its own story. It's its own world. But obviously it still has the DNA of Spider-Man, no pun intended, but yeah, there's a lot to talk about. I feel like a lot of what I want to talk about goes into spoilers, but yeah, that's kind of...
Yeah, well, I think that this is definitely a more wholly original kind of version of a Spider-Man that we've seen before.
Yeah.
I think that you talked a little bit about the groundedness. That like this isn't a series where every single episode we're getting a major action set piece, which I think actually serves well for the overall writing of it. I think that it gives you time to kind of understand these characters and the relationships between them, especially, and even understanding the psychology behind some of these other super powered individuals that we get introduced to throughout the series. You have like a version of Tombstone in this series. You have a version of Sandman in this, and then there's another character that I thought it was Electro, but at the very end, he's kind of that's like a different character
what was
from the
it,
comics.
like Magnetron or something?
Do you remember?
Megawatt.
Yeah.
Which apparently is a character in the comics. So I guess they just
I
decided
so
to
thought
do
it was
something
Electro the whole time. Also,
the entire time.
I guess there's 2 electric guys.
I guess.
Spider-Mans.
Well, yeah, that's not a surprise with the.
There's also the Shocker. Is that
Yeah, that's
true?
also- that's also-
There's 3 electric men.
Yeah.
Very weird.
They live on Electric Avenue.
And then you have these other characters that are very central to the story, like Robbie and Janet that work with Ben directly. You have Lee Jun Lee's Cat Hardy, and then Brendan Gleeson's Silvermane. Brendan Gleeson. I want to talk about Brendan Gleeson for a second. I love this guy. I love him as an actor. I think that he does the ramped up gangster villain really well in this. And my brother and I just kept saying while watching the series, we're like, this is what Conor McGregor is going to be like in like 30 years. Like this is exactly what he was going to be. How did you feel about the way they handled kind of the antagonists and the obstacles that Ben kind of faced throughout this series?
Oh yeah, he's a right old sport. Yeah, I like him. I think Brendan Gleeson's one of the most underrated actors currently working. I think he's terrific, and I think he elevates a role that on the page is not that interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that we could have given him a little more sauce to stir. He has some really good moments, but it's entirely his performance. I don't think the character of Silvermane is really ever that interesting. He's just kind of like a lesser version of Falcone is kind of what he reminded me of from the Batman franchise. He's just like like an intimidating mob boss, but yeah, nothing about this guy really stood out as anything like super unique to center the villain role around for the show, which is odd to me because Spider-Man's got one of the best villain catalogs ever. Like I'm sure there might have been some kind of like Kingpin, literally Kingpin you could have used, but like some kind of bigger mob adjacent villain that maybe we could have used. I don't know if Silvermane's from the comics, if he's specifically for noir, if he's specifically made for the show, whatever it may be. I found all of the superpowered individuals that orbit around him and what I think is supposed to be Black Cat.
I agree.
To be way more interesting. I think that they all have something at least a little bit compelling going on. And they have their moments. I think each of them kind of go like this in terms of how interesting they are in the show. The Sandman reveal in the first episode got me stoked for the whole show. I was like, oh, it's so fucking cool that Sandman, putting it together. And he's like, it's a whole new way to kind of portray the character as like a 30s gangster. Just immediately kind of put me on board. Past that, I like, is Lonnie the Lizard? Like that.
Lonnie's Tombstone.
Oh, he's Tombstone.
Wait, he was supposed to be Tombstone?
Yeah. Lonnie Lincoln is Tombstone's character name. In the
I
comics.
actually was not.
I
I'm a
thought he
fake
was the
fan.
Lizard because he had like scales.
I thought that as well until a little bit later on, and I was like, oh, like it's like the indestructible nature of like his skin.
Yeah.
Because Tombstone's in Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yes.
It's the animated show that Disney Plus.
No,
did.
I would actually like to. Are you finished with your point? Or,
I lost the train of thought. Go ahead.
okay, because I'm actually gonna add on to that.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Like the villains in this show have their moments, but throughout as a whole, they lost me so much.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of flip-flopping. There's a lot of like flipping of motivations. And I think the show thinks they're more interesting than they actually are. Because there are moments where I'm really intrigued with Flint's character, the Sandman. And even like Megawatts. I love that he's just so
over the
hammed
top.
up. Yeah, he's so hammed up. He's like having him be a Broadway play enthusiast adds so much. But again, I think the show thinks it's more interesting than it really is because so much of the characters, like I'm just losing interest. I'm getting kind of, I can't lie, maybe I'm just baby brained at this point, but I am getting kind of confused with the flip flopping and then like. Now I know of Tombstone. Tombstone is here. Okay, now he wants to be here. Now he's working with Silvermane. Okay, now He's cured. He doesn't want to be a part of it anymore. Et cetera, et cetera. And the reason why I'm bringing this up with the clarification that he is Tombstone is because when you were talking, I was thinking about Silvermane. And I was like, you know what would have been cool if Silvermane was somewhat similar to Tombstone in the comic books and in Spider-Verse, where he also had powers. And he was a mobster with powers like Tombstone is in the comic books. But now learning that he's not the reptilian or not the lizard, kind of, it changes.
It's weird.
Yeah,
I want to talk about your point with Flint because Flint is a character that I think probably has the most objective intrigue. I really like Megawatt. Again, entirely because of this guy's performance.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's like a super well-known actor.
He's not. I feel like in watching it, I think that they brought him in as like going to be the tertiary villain, and then like this guy is doing such a great job with such little stuff that we're gonna give him more to do.
Yeah, he's
in the least amount of episodes of the 3 villains.
Yes, yeah, he has the least to do in the plot. He's literally just kind of there to like fill up the space. I thought when he was introduced that they're building the Sinister Six. They didn't go that far with it. But I really like him. I specifically really like the scene where he kisses the guard to death. That's awesome. Yeah. Like, I kind of wish in the villainous moments of this show, because it is really like 50% of the screen time is devoted to one of these villain characters, that they would go a little crazier with it more often. Like, I think it's the first episode where we see that guy's throat get slit, and it's like very gruesome and violent. I wasn't expecting that for a Spider-Man show, and I like the like generally grittier nature of the show sometimes, but it feels kind of afraid to commit to it. And I specifically think that those characters could have used a little more like violence, gore, whatever you want to call it, but just like push the envelope a little bit. Like, I think it could have really added some intrigue to these characters, because I'm supposed to be very like intimidated by Flint, especially, who's like, you know, this man, he's becoming a monster and he's gonna blow up. But like all he ever does is like punch a wall. You know, like if he freaked out and like ripped the guy in half or something, I'd be like, oh fuck, like he's really, you know, dangerous.
I think that goes back to what you were talking about the tonal whiplash that the show can have at times, because I forgot about the throat slit because it happened so early in the show. Yeah. And that's the actor that happens to is another great actor. He was in Mindhunter. He played Ed Kemper.
Yep.
But the series is rated TV-14. I was just looking. So it's like, how many limitations did they have with that?
No,
versus
they drop an F-bomb, at least one. And I think there might be a second one somewhere in there.
Which that would also allude to like a PG-13. That's like the similar as a PG-13 though, because you can get away with 1 or 2 of them.
I know, but then you got like scary spider monster and shit. There's like some horror elements in here too.
Definitely.
I think that's kind of what we're kind of all orbiting around, is that there's a lot of different tones, and sometimes it's a really nice clash of going from like, like fun Spider-Man, and he's helping this kid who, again, that kid is awesome.
He's great. You know who that kid is?
No.
That's the kid from Weapons.
Get out, really?
The young kid that's like helping him? Yeah.
Oh, well, that kid's fucking terrific.
He's great.
I hope he's like a
he's
main role in season 2 if they make another season of the show.
I think they will.
He's
I think
excellent.
It's successful for them.
But yeah, like that, going from like a scene of, you know, Nick Cage and this very talented young actor riffing back and forth in their office, to cutting to like a very serious, like Flint confronting Cat about their relationship. Oh, damn, you know, you got away from me again. You know, like it's just kind of like a weird whiplash.
It works better, I think, in Spider-Verse because
it's played for laughs every time.
Yes, and it's a playful, it's very separate where all the different versions of Spider-Man that come in is kind of most of the time more for the playful stuff, and then all the stuff that's connected to Miles becomes the more honed in, kind of grounded part of it. I think that the biggest problem with this show is that tonal whiplash, because we're going back to the villains for a second. Like Flint, I think Sandman as a character is one of the most wrongly utilized in screen adaptations since this has happened, because I think Sandman as a character is one that's very damaged. He's one that's based in, again, a lot of this trauma, and they have a lot of this even in the relationship they could play into with Flint and Cat in this, that you don't get to a point where you're actually feeling it as much for him after the premiere episode. Like, he kind of just becomes this guy who's off to the side and he's like, I love you, baby.
Yeah.
And that's really it.
I love you, baby, sometimes, but sometimes I love my boss, and sometimes I just want to do my job.
Yeah,
It's like,
and,
he's a little weird.
And I feel like if they didn't have all three villains, if they maybe would have just honed in on his relationship, it probably would have benefited.
Cannot be in anything alone.
Ever.
They won't let him.
No, and I don't really understand that because I feel like the character's
interesting.
Pretty compelling on his own. And Jack Huston, who plays the character, he played one of my favorite TV characters of all time on Boardwalk Empire. He played. Do you ever watch Boardwalk Empire?
No, I haven't, but my dad told me about Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah, he plays a character.
Great.
He plays a character named Richard Harrow, who like literally is one of my favorite TV characters ever. And I feel like he hasn't been given an opportunity to do more in some of these things, and I felt like this would have been a really like I reacted the same way you did when you find out that he's Sandman. I'm like, this is cool, dude. I didn't know we were gonna have this side. Like, I didn't know we were gonna get like real Spider-Man villains in this version of the show.
I think the allure of the promise of the first episode is like you go into it and it's like, damn, it's like a gritty noir Spider-Man, cool. And like in the haze of like, wow, I can't believe Nick Cage is playing a fucking 30s Spider-Man, you kind of forget that like they're gonna introduce like 30s mobbed up versions of like iconic supervillains too. So it's like an amazing promise at the start, and I just feel like the characters could have been more interesting because like all the ingredients are there to make like peak, and it's not quite that, unfortunately.
Yeah. But let's talk about Nick because he's at the center of all of this. I like that we get even his origin later on, and where we see kind of how all of these guys are a part of a platoon that all kind of went into. I wish we got more of that as well. I wish we got more of kind of like, whether it was flashback or maybe it would have been beneficial to do like one episode that wholly focused on like his war times. But Vinny, I'm curious, like for you, with seeing the way that Nick really committed to this version of the character, did you like the way that he handled it? Again, like kind of amping things up with the comedy, but being able to ground him when he was in the suit, basically.
Yeah, you're referring to Nicolas Cage, obviously.
Yes.
Okay. So it's hard to put in more. I actually do like his performance here. I do. Because again, like Sean said, Nicolas Cage is really good even when he's bad. Because when he's bad, like objectively it might not be a great performance, but it's fucking fun.
Yeah.
It's a fun. Easily my favorite parts of this performance is when he's whacked out, when he's drunk, on drugs, or half dead, got his innards got cut up and shit. Or when he's like hurt and he's doing like the I love Nick Cage's physicality because even at even in his 60s, he's able to just bring this actual insanity, like a literal sorry, I'm spitting. A literal like schizophrenic like physicality, and I love it. I love
him
it.
sleeping with his knees like up to his chest like a spider that's like curled up. It's so awesome.
And I think those moments is when Nick really shines as a performer. It's just so just crazy bizarre. I think a lot of the time though, I get what he was going for with the noir, and he's laid back, and Ben Reilly's not as eccentric within his everyday persona as the other Peter Parkers and whatnot. Some of it got a little too monotone for me, but I also don't think that's his fault. I think that's how the dialogue was directed and shot, but that's another conversation.
Did you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm a sucker for Nick Cage. I honestly, I think my conflict with the show as a whole is that, do I think that Nick Cage is doing a really good job playing this character of Ben Reilly? Yeah, I think he's like pretty much killing it. I think the writing is like, again, a little up and down, but mostly up. It's mostly very good. He's got some really high highs, especially in like those sequences, like you were saying, where he's got some kind of altered state going on. He just hams it up and is so great in those moments. I think what's weird about it to me is that it's an expectation thing of me going into a Spider-Man show And I think kind of the conclusion that I came to by the end of the show is that, like, he's not really Spider-Man. He's kind of
He's the Spider.
He's a guy with spider powers, but he's not Peter Parker and he's not Spider-Man. So I'm just kind of like, as a huge Spider-Man fan, like coming to terms with that.
Yeah.
You know, that this is like not Spider-Man. It's kind of like its own thing, which like obviously, but I thought that we were kind of going to get a lot of like the things that I love about Spider-Man in this guy. And like, we kind of don't, which is not an issue with the show. It's just a weird adjustment for me. And I think I kind of went in expecting a little more Peter Parker than we got. And it took me some time to like get accustomed to it. And I still don't know if I necessarily like this character more than a Peter Parker Spider-Man. But for what it is, I mean, Nick Cage kills it.
Yeah, I think that he's just clearly very committed to doing something that feels new and it feels fresh, especially in this genre. Like if you're talking about the comic book genre and how tiresome a lot of these things become, where it's consistently like it feels formulaic, even things that like are somewhat off the beaten path, then people are like, you know, like, and I was one of these people being like, you know, Fantastic Four feels a little different. It's like, it's not really. It's made in the same blender of what the MCU is. Yeah. And I think that, yes, this, like, when the villains start to come in and it starts to become this whole, like, rambunctious ensemble, I think it loses its footing at times, because it's like, well, we should be focusing on Ben and his relationship with being a detective and the relationships with, like, I thought that I was really intrigued with the characters that play like his like little crew. Like yeah. I thought I mean the young kid who comes in like and sporadically throughout the show, I think he's great when he starts to like actually team up with them. Lamorne Morris, I haven't seen in a lot of things. I loved him in Saturday Night, the SNL biopic they made about the start of Saturday Night Live. And I really liked him in this. I felt like the relationship between Robbie and Ben worked really well, and how they kind of it was cool that he was like the only one that was aware of what his identity was the whole time. And the one who plays Janet, Karen Rodriguez, I had never heard of before, and I felt like she did a really good job, and they had a great rapport as well.
They're both really good.
Yeah.
I think it's fun to kind of play a Spider-Man story where everyone close to him knows he's Spider-Man already. We don't have to go through the thing of like them catching him or whatever. And when they even like parody that in the later episodes where it's like, oh yeah, she was just drunk walking around in the Spider-Man mask, which is hilarious. Yeah, I think it's a really good ensemble. These are like pretty new, relatively unknown actors, and they have really good camaraderie with legendary Nick Cage, so they kill it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the different ways to watch the show, because so I watched the show entirely in black and white. I tried watching episode 2 in color for about 3 minutes before I was like, this is way too jarring, and I don't like the way it makes me feel after watching a full episode in black and white. So I wanted to stick with black and white. And I do think it enhanced my quote-unquote noir experience, because it did, like, the scenes that felt more noir, I felt like it elevated those aspects of it because it was in black and white, versus like if I watched it in color, it would have felt more like parody versus like actually paying tribute to what they were trying to do with the show. Right. You had watched some of it in black and white and some in color, Sean?
Yeah, I'm gonna let Vinny go first because I have kind of like a mixed thought about the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have a lot of opinions on this. Watch the first episode in black and white. Watch the rest in color. I know I'm a fake fan, but so I do agree with you of like the overall experience in black and white feels a lot more cohesive. However, I did go for the color because I was seeing clips and the colors really do pop. And what I love, and it was more of like just like a time and place type of thing, because in real life right now, a current topic that I'm always talking about is how drab modernity is, right? If that's how you correctly pronounce that word, right? The modern era is incredibly drab. Everyone likes to imagine that back in the day, right? The Odyssey. Oh my God, everyone's wearing brown and gray and brown and gray. No. For all of human history, we were basked. I mean, head to toe, everything was colorful. Yeah, the Greek statues look gray and marble, but they were once painted, right? They had color on them. So it's a very passionate topic of mine. And then when I'm seeing this, I'm like, oh my God, they actually committed to realistic color. Yes, there were rooms that were painted green, red, blue. It looks beautiful. And I just needed that color in my life to like see just a bedroom that's just splashing with green and blue or splashing with stripes of pink. And I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So I love that element of the color version where you're able to really experience just such a comic booky environment. It brings out the set design, it brings out the production design in an incredible way, it brings out the costume design. Those are two things that I have to applaud the show to all hell because it's amazing. It also brings out the cinematography in a good way and a bad way. I like the cinematography because it mimics a lot of sharp Fresnel tungsten lighting of the noir era, super sharp, lots of hard light. That's a thing that I'm super like. I don't like this current trend in modern cinematography where everything is soft light. Everything is soft light. Everyone's just afraid to light their subject in hard lighting. But they do it. They let the shadows fall into complete blackness. It looks really cool. And it's very exaggerated. It's very it's elevated, right? It's not trying to go for a naturalistic look. And the color brings that out to a lot, but it might be jarring for someone because seeing that type of lighting in color, especially in the modern era where that type of lighting is never used anymore, it's like, whoa. And some of the scenes, it does get a little weird when we're in the bar. Like the bar looks weird at points. It looks very but again, that's also how bars looked back in the day. We just see them in black and white photos all the time. So that was my really long explanation. I enjoy the color, but it can be jarring for some.
I just read that apparently they shot it for black and white, and then all the color was digitally added.
Okay, well, that's exactly what I thought happened. I watched the first episode in black and white simply because my Amazon TV glitched, and it just started in black and white, and I just said, okay, and then we just went with it. I switched to color in episode 2. I wish I could say that I have as beautiful as a reason as Vinny does. I just like my colors. I kind of feel like this show looks better outside during the daytime when the color's on. You get to experience beautiful 1930s New York. You get to appreciate all the effects that they're doing and the really great set design and the popping colors of everything that's happening outside. When we're inside, specifically in the last episode, the bar set, I really just don't think is lit for color. It feels like it was shot with black and white in mind. Yeah. And there was some shots in there that just felt like, I don't know, just kind of like nasty looking on the eyes of just very like bright colors, and everyone, like the lighting just seemed like a little weird. It felt very like sitcom-y in moments in terms of the general lighting. So I switched to black and white for my finale. So I started in black and white, I ended in black and white, and I did color all through the middle. And I got to say, I think a lot of my critiques with the cinematography were pretty much instantly alleviated in the indoor scenes when I went back to black and light. Yeah. The shadows looked great. It had a gloomier feel. The smoke of the cigarettes was way more prominent. You know, it immediately felt more noir to me. So even though I'm somebody who always loves my colors, if season 2 comes out, I'll probably watch in color again. I think if you're asking me objectively what I think the right way to watch the show is, I would say it's in black and white.
Yeah, I felt like it immersed me in the world a lot more.
Yeah.
Especially like you talked about that, like it I think all of the goofiness at times even gets masked by it. Like it just feels darker. It feels more drab. Yeah. It feels like this is a world that is harsher. It's harsher for Ben. Even if he is like being, like doing the Nicolas Cage thing as James Cagney, like you're still, it feels different when you're having that viewing experience. We haven't talked a lot about Kat. I'm curious on your guys' thoughts on her relationship with Ben in general and Lee Jun-Lee's performance, because I liked her a lot in Babylon. I really enjoy Babylon.
She's good in Sinners too.
She's good in Sinners. It's a very divisive movie, Babylon. Sinners, she has obviously a different kind of role, but she's now become this woman who's obviously doing great work in period pieces. Yeah. I do think that the relationship between her and Ben is one of my gripes with this season, because I feel like it's one of those things that's also very up and down. I wasn't sure really how to kind of I didn't understand much of it the way it was unfolding.
I kind of have a theory. I don't know if any of this is true. I think what might be happening with this relationship is I'm very similar to you. I feel very up and down about it, which evidently it seems like I feel up and down about a lot of the show, but I think it's generally on the up. With Kat, I kind of feel like this show is doing like a parody and a love letter and a just straight up true noir all at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think something that I do know about noirs is that a lot of times the dames, the broads, are all kind of like the same woman femme fatale character.
Yeah.
So obviously it's not the most like educated and modern role for a woman to play in a story. And I think that this show had the very difficult task of trying to navigate the truths of the trend of what female characters were like in noir stories, while also trying to kind of, diversify the role a little bit, give her a little more than just being like, oh, Ben, I've always loved you. It's a little more complicated than that, but it's ultimately trying to stick to that trope in the same way. So there's a little bit of a mismatch, I think, where it's like we can't give her too much because then she falls out of the like character, the trope that she's meant to be playing in this noir story. But we also can't make her just like another damsel in distress, like, oh, I'm in love with this cool, handsome detective, and that's my whole character, because that's also kind of boring. So it's this weird middle ground, and I don't think it really excels at doing either one. So sometimes it's like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then sometimes I'm like, I don't really know like what this character is.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. That's a big part of the reason why I wanted to kind of see more between her and Flint. Because, again, she clearly has love for this character that I don't feel like really gets
expanded.
It doesn't come across that way for a lot of the series because it's not expanded upon. Vinny, what did you think about Kat's dynamic as a character and then her relationship with Ben as the series kind of goes on?
I think I echo the same points as you guys because, again, similar to what we were talking about with the villains, she gets some really good scenes. She gets some really good dialogue at points where it just, I can't think of anything on the top of my head, but I did have two moments in particular, and I wish I could remember them now, where I was like, damn, that hits right there. But then again, like you guys said, I 100% agree with you. It's up and down. There's like, I think the show is trying to make it more interesting than it really is. And just the overall vibe and aesthetic and Ben Reilly as a character carries that part that's kind of, he's picking it up on his back. He's kind of carrying the weight a little bit. I agree. It's just kind of all over the place in some areas.
She's no MJ. Let's just put it that way.
She's no MJ. I think my biggest gripe with this is structurally how it works, how the show kind of unfolds. I don't think it needed to be 8 episodes if they didn't want to dive into certain things in a deeper way. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that the villains kind of get too much screen time where I feel like it would have been better to kind of focus on Ben and his motivations and also like what it was like for him to be the Spider. Like they don't deal with that a lot either. Like his contemplation of like being like, well, now I have to go and do this because this is my duty. They're kind of just like, well, you've always been there to like save the day.
Yeah, I was glad that you brought that up. I think the ultimate like catharsis of the show is very Spider-Man. It's very like, great power, great responsibility, classic. He realizes that this is his responsibility. He has this power. Yeah. He needs to do this. The whole show leading up to that moment has nothing to do with that theme, and it feels a little disconnected. I think we should have had a bit more emphasis on the idea that he really doesn't want to be Spider-Man and why. Because he returns to being the Spider like not for really any like major reason. I feel like he's just kind of is again, and then he's like, I'm gonna go right back into retirement once I'm done here, but like then he doesn't, so it's kind of weird. Like it almost feels like, again, like on paper it works, of that he gets like kind of just gradually lured back in for a second, and he's like, I'm just gonna do this because like this is the last one, and then like I'm really taking my vacation, I'm going to wherever he's going, but then he like finds his love for being Spider-Man again through this experience. it just doesn't really like feel that way to me. Like I get what they were doing. It didn't really like click in the right way, and I think that is to do with the hesitance to give him like alone moments. You know, like let us really get into his mind and unravel this guy. I feel like there was a level of depth that I wanted from him sometimes that we weren't getting.
Are there any moments in the show where he's alone with himself? There's not many. Like, there's not a lot of contemplative moments.
Yeah, like seldom, few if there are. And I kind of agree with you now that you've put the thought in my head that like this maybe could have been a 6-episode show and been a lot tighter for it.
Yeah.
Which is so weird to say because I was so like in love with this concept and I was like, wow, there's 8 of them. But now after seeing it, yeah, I think like there's some fluff in here. I got to be honest, man, like Lonnie, really good character, like great actor. I don't really know what he did for the story, and there's a lot of time devoted to him, especially like in that like early middle section of the show, like the episodes like 3, 4, 5, where he's kind of like not doing anything. He's just like there as set up to then like turn him into a gangster last second, and then he's like, actually, I do have a heart of gold. It's just very weird.
It is weird because it also starts as the perspective of they start from the moment of Ed. I'm gonna keep calling him Ed Kemper. Cameron Britton's character. I forget the one that died. From the
it's like something with an A. It's like
he's a detective.
Addison.
Yeah, Addison. Thank you. That's initially how Robbie kind of gets information because he's like, I heard you were a friend of Addison's. Like, I'm here to kind of. He wants to talk to Addison's wife. Doesn't he?
Right.
I think that's how
Addison, I apologize if I misheard you guys wrong. Addison was the fire guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Addison was the fire guy.
Yeah.
Okay,
Who are you talking about?
I was.
Oh, the reporter.
Yes.
Oh, the other report. I don't remember that guy's
No,
name.
but no,
Ed
Addison.
like
Kemper.
Dingle.
Addison is the right thing. The fire guy. It starts with Robbie going there to kind of talk to him about his relationship with him, and then it evolves into this much bigger thing with him as a character. And I don't know necessarily, like, I just don't know where they were going with it. I felt like a lot of the stuff that they were doing with the antagonists didn't feel like it was thought through. I felt like they were like, well, we could turn this person into like this character from the comics, and then we can like explain like how they got their powers, but we're not really going to explain it. We're not really going to show it to you. We're just going to keep showing this photograph, and all these people were infected because of this one thing that happened. It lacks depth. I think the show lacks a lot of depth in areas where it could have been punched up more for like the psychology of these characters to where it's very blanket. Everything is like a blanket explanation for things.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, people would probably have gotten mad about it on Twitter, but I mean, we have a character who's a super mutant black man in the 1930s, and there's like really no racial politics going on at all.
Yeah.
You know, like if we're looking for depth with this character, I feel like that was very obvious. And I kind of feel that way about a lot of the themes of the show. You know, this is such like a volatile time period. Like this is really, I mean, you're looking at people who are, you know, 50 in this time. They grew up in the 1800s and they were living on the frontier. And now civilization has entered their lives. It was a huge boom. We go through the 1920s. Everyone's fucking partying and popping champagne and driving cars. It's amazing. And now civilization has failed you in the 1930s. And it's the first time that as a global or a nationwide civilization that the federal government has kind of been like, we're taking your fucking booze and the economy's bad. You can't make any money. Everyone's pissed. Everyone's racist, sexist, homophobic, the whole thing. And like, I don't feel any of that turbulence in this show. Yeah. And I feel like to have this time period and set it specifically in the 30s with the Great Depression, there's an election going on. We have minority characters and like none of that pizzazz is there. Is very like playing it really safe, I feel like.
Yeah. Did you have something, Vinny? I felt like there were a couple times you wanted to chime in.
Trying to think back. I agree with that point. I apologize. I'm just trying to think back on my train of thought. It was I don't remember. It will come to me.
Okay.
I don't remember.
I mean, there's not much else I have to say about it. I think that I understand what you're saying, and I do agree. I think that, again, I don't know if that's the show they wanted to tell, which I get. Like, the biggest thing with this is they're like, no, it's like a fun romp.
I get it. Trust me, I completely understand
Yeah.
because it's Nick Cage. He's very funny. It's Spider-Man wearing a fedora and a trench coat. Like, obviously, it doesn't need to be, like, super serious.
Yeah.
But I think there was room there.
100%.
I remember what I was going to say, and it actually relates to everything we've been talking about.
Oh, my God.
It's going back to the tone. It's definitely the tone. I still wish that this, we want to get, what is noir I think Sin City is the perfect exaggeration of noir, right? A deconstruction, or I don't know what you would classify
Like a
it
neo
as.
noir, maybe.
Yeah, but it's so exaggerated. But you really see like noirs, the femme fatales and the main characters are always alone and battling a
Brooding and-
psychological battle that's stronger than any battle they've ever faced, and that the main plot is following. But we allude to that, but we're too lighthearted in the tone to stick with that. You know, we get like moments where it's like, oh, he's an alcoholic, but it's always like a nudge, like.
It's played for
Gotta get
jokes.
off
I mean,
that booze.
it's definitely played for jokes. I mean,
Yeah.
it's even even the bar fight scene, which I think is great and I think it's
Yeah.
hilarious. But that's kind of his calling back to action of him being the spider, and it's literally a joke that just transitions into him being like, "All right, now I have a plan on how to make all this
Yeah,
work."
he also like kicks the shit out of like 6 innocent guys, and I feel like it's really never touched on that this is maybe the first live action Spider-Man that kills. He's killing.
Yeah.
A lot of motherfuckers die by this man's hands
Yeah.
in this show. And I feel like that never really gets brought up or like explored in any way, that he like has no guilt for murdering. Like I know he was a soldier, so like obviously there's like that part of his life, but it's a different thing, you know. Like,
Yeah.
it's a very different thing, and I feel like that's kind of weird to like gloss over.
Yeah, I think that I think that's why that episode where he is captured by I believe it's the mother of a fellow soldier.
Right. Yeah.
That's why I think it's my favorite episode of the entire series, because I think it dives into those darker themes in a different way. You're seeing kind of how he gets bit by that crazy looking
Yeah,
half
which is
man,
really
half
cool.
spider. It's an insane character design. I wonder what it looked like in color, but he, like in black and white, it's fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
It's like, this thing is crazy. So like, I wish we got more of that throughout the entirety of the show, but regardless, like I still I had a really fun time with it. I just think Nick Cage, like you said at the top, Sean, like I will watch anything this guy does because he's
Yep.
so unique, and there's no actor that does it like
I
him.
have dug to the bottom of the streaming barrel for Nick Cage, and I will go even deeper if he asks.
Yeah, I was. Did you see the rumors last year when he was talking about he was going to be retiring?
Yeah, I fucking don't you dare.
I think he's backpedaled on that, but he's like, yeah, I think I got about 5 left in me. It's like,
Yeah,
5?
no way,
It's like, dude, we need to see you in like a movie every other 3 months. Like,
He's not stopping. I don't believe him. He's kind of. I think he's gonna do. There was somebody else that just popped in my head for a second and then went right out. But somebody who's basically just gonna say that he's retiring. Oh, kind of like Pesci. Pesci
Yeah.
actually like legitimately did retire for
a lot less
segment
roles
there.
than Nicolas Cage.
Yeah,
too.
but then he would pop back in every now and then. He comes back for the big dogs. I
Yeah.
think Nick Cage will probably do that. I think he's gonna show up in a movie when he's like 84.
It'd be awesome.
You know.
I'd love to see what that would look like. But yeah, I mean, like, again, overall, I still really enjoyed the show. I had a lot of fun with it. I would like to see them kind of trend more on picking their lane, like you talked about. They're trying to accomplish a lot of different things within this tone of making a mockery of it, also paying homage to it, and then also really trying to deal with the tropes that come with noir films. So I think that if they can get steady in terms of the writing, I think that the showrunner for this is named Oren Uziel, and I was looking at his filmography. A lot of the stuff that he's done that's not comedic has been stuff that hasn't necessarily worked by a lot of people's standards. So like the first Mortal Kombat movie, like not great in terms of the writing. The Lost City, I didn't see it, but has a 6.1 on IMDb, didn't do crazy well. That was that movie with Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum. If you remember, it came out a couple years ago. But he also did 22 Jump Street, which I think is a hilarious movie. But again, tonally entirely different than what you might want in a Spider-Noir show.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm curious if they can maybe get another writer in there with him to kind of co-show run.
Yeah.
And
So basically what we have here is a comedy show that is an hour and in a very serious setting, and I think there's just some moments of mismatch throughout along the way.
yeah. But I still had a lot of fun with this. So did you guys have any more comments about the show overall?
I had 2.
Okay, go ahead.
One was. Oh shit! Why am I losing my train of thought, man? This is terrible. I'll start with my second one because I don't remember. I don't know why this is doing this to me. My brain. My second one was okay. Enjoyed the show. I don't mind it, but I read a report that this show cost $400 million.
I think that's false.
And
I would have to imagine that's false.
Yes, because I was gonna say, where the hell did that budget go? Because
I saw a different number online, by the way.
Okay.
What was your number?
140.
Okay, that
makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense because I was gonna say, there's some moments where the CGI really took me out. You know, especially in color, you notice it.
Yeah, that's what my brother had said when he watched the first 2 episodes in color. He's like, dude, you gotta watch it in black and white.
100%.
And then my second/first that I forgot was darn, why am I losing it?
Come on,
right
Vinny.
there.
Channel your inner brain.
It's right there.
Brain blast.
I really loved. This is not my point, but I think my favorite episode is the when he's getting experimented on. It's incredible all throughout. Shit, yeah,
it's okay.
I lost it, man. I don't know. I'll leave it in the comments if I remember.
Did you have anything?
No, I think. Oh shit, it's back.
Okay.
Go on.
Yes, I brought it up before. Okay, so something that did annoy me. First episode, I think, is an amazing pilot. This is a super ambitious show in its presentation. Incredibly ambitious. Like they do, I love the Spidey sense. I love what they do with the lens there. Again, I love a lot of what they're trying to mimic with the noir lighting. I love where they are cutting corners in a very inspiring way, right? So instead of having to fucking spend thousands of dollars on another CGI shot, you just hear the right of him hitting the window, and then she turns around and he's there, right? Or the transformation of Ogie turning young again, where it's like the spinning, the panning camera, and then
reminded me a lot of Twilight Zone.
Yeah, and I think that's so inspiring and so brilliant, and I love where they're cutting corners. I love that how ambitious it is for an Amazon show. It's incredible that we're just getting this in general out of a superhero IP. Like, it's not being afraid to take risk and do that. First episode, dialogue scenes shot really well. However, the rest of the season, dialogue scenes were not shot as well. Maybe I'm tripping here, but I kid you not, it felt like 9 out of 10 of the dialogue scenes that were not in the first, that like from the first episode onward, are just shot, reverse shot, and it's like the same lighting setup, the same composition. They were doing a lot of Dutches, and then they kind of lose the Dutches, and they lose I guess Noir didn't really have much camera movement because at the time they were always on sticks.
That's kind of how I looked at it.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's like an homage thing where they wanted to keep the cinematography simplistic in those scenes.
I'll say, I mean, I don't. You have way more of a cinematography education than I do, but there is specifically a extended sequence in the last episode where they're all sat in the booth while they're awaiting for Spider-Man to arrive, where everyone is on the same side of the booth, and there are some like really noticeably bad, ugly shots in that sequence because everyone's on the same side of the wall. So it'll be like you want to catch like Cat's reaction and Silvermane talking, and the camera's like here, Silvermane's here, and Cat's like behind me here. And it's just very weird. Like, it's just bizarre framing.
Yeah, because I'm going to add to that, because that's, again, this is something I picked up. Again, there's frames in this show that are stunning, that are incredible compositions, that literally it's like ripped out straight out of a comic panel, right? You have these scenes that are shot on super wide lenses, and the composition of these characters are massive. And why aren't we doing more of that in superhero movies? I don't understand why we're not doing more of that, but I love it here. But then you got scenes like that, and I completely agree. And I think that is a fault of the directing. That is just bad blocking. That's bad blocking. And unfortunately, the color made this, what I'm going to say next, the color made this next point a lot more prominent than in the black and white. But you're not going to notice it, or I guess I notice it more because they don't do this in modern film anymore. Just changing the lighting from setup to setup. Like they literally, there will be a backlight on Silvermane in the wide where his face, there's no shadows on his face. And then we cut to a profile shot where he's foreground, Cat's background. All of a sudden, there's no light on that side of his face. Like that window just didn't exist anymore. And I appreciate the exaggerating the noir style for that, but yeah, I don't think they properly knew how to light that bar specifically.
Yeah.
But again, at the same time, I say that really
Having
as
loved the colors.
Yeah, as a nitpick too, because a lot of the show is beautiful and I do like it.
All right. You ready for scores?
Yeah.
All right. You want to go first?
I guess, yeah, man. I mean, I feel like I just tend, like in these discussions that we do here on the Culture Wave Media Network, that I just tend to like harp on the things that don't work for me. But most of this show worked for me, and I think the fact that it exists in the first place is really great. I love Nick Cage. I love Spider-Man. They could make 10 seasons of this, and they could all get progressively worse, and I would still watch to the finale just because I'm a sucker. So at the end of the day, man, I think it's fucking awesome that they went out on a limb and actually Sony made a Spider-Man property that isn't total dog shit. Like, dude, we're dealing with Kraven the Hunter, Morbius, Madam Web, both amazing Spider-Mans. That's their track record. And now they made Spider-Noir. This is the first thing they've ever done that's good in the past, fucking 2 decades.
Yeah, it's true.
So shout out Sony. Do something more like this. More of this, please. You know, that's what we want from the Spider-Man IP. I think it's an awesome experiment. It has definitely some flaws. It's not the greatest show in the world. I think this concept and with this cast could be done better, but for what it is, I'm a solid 7 out of 10.
Okay. I'm going to go a little higher than you. I also felt like I was being a little bit more negative in the conversation, but I think that the pilot episode and the final 2 episodes, I love. I love all of those episodes, genuinely. Within those other 5 episodes, there's still a lot to like. There's just a lot of tonal issues, and in terms of the structure that they're dealing with certain characters and how they decide to give certain time to certain characters and the way they write certain characters, where I felt like, again, if they maybe made it a 6-episode series, they would have been able to tighten a lot of that up.
Yeah.
Having said that, I would rewatch this season. I had so much fun with it. I love that Nick Cage is doing something like this. I love that Nick Cage is back in the comic book genre after what he did with Ghost Rider, which is also silly and crazy, but he has a real admiration for that character. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. I really had a lot of fun with this, and I look forward to watching it again because it was a fun time for me. Vinny?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a light 7 out of 10.
It's light.
Just light.
But it's still a 7.
Light one. It could be a 6 on
But
a
it's
bad day, dude.
But it's still a 7 right
be.
now.
Yes.
But yes, let us know in the comment section, what did you guys think about Spider-Noir? This one hasn't been announced for a 2nd season yet, but I know it's doing really, really well for Amazon, so hopefully it does get renewed. I also hope, this is very hopeful thinking, I hope Nicolas Cage gets consideration for best actor in a comedy series for this.
Yeah,
I think
be awesome.
he can be, and
He's
I think
really funny.
He's very committed and he's great in the performance. So hopefully we see something like that. But let us know in the comments, what did you guys think about the show overall? Give this video a like if you guys can, and subscribe to us if you don't already here at the Culture Wave Media Network. We're covering a lot of things on the network right now. Liz and I just wrapped up our coverage of Euphoria. We're getting ready to do Tribeca Film Festival. We have reviews up right now for Backrooms and Obsession, and 2 of the biggest movies in the world right now. So please check those out and follow us on social media if you don't already. All that stuff is below me in the video, and it's also in the YouTube description. So just signing off, I'm Darian Scalamoni.
I've been Sean Villa.
And I've been Vinny Albano.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.